Imagine paying $1,200 a year just so your 9-year-old can run around on a municipal grass field.
Yeah,
I mean, literally visualize yourself writing that check every single season. And you are doing that while the richest, most profitable soccer tournament in human history is setting up shop directly in your backyard.
and that $1,200 figure, that is really just the entry fee. That is the baseline. Wait until that 9-year-old turns 12, right? And the out-of-state travel tournaments actually begin.
Oh,
The
exactly.
whole financial landscape,
Yeah,
it just shifts from a recreational activity into something, well, something resembling a second mortgage.
It is wild, and that paradox right there is what we're exploring today in this deep dive. Because with the 2026 FIFE World Cup arriving on North American soil, the whole developmental landscape of American youth soccer is under this unprecedented spotlight.
Right.
We have a massive stack of sources today. We are looking at industry data, community case studies, institutional blueprints, and we want you to explore what happens when a global spotlight hits a very fractured local system.
And the tension that is really driving this entire deep dive, it revolves around a very specific promise. Because the institutions that built the current youth soccer crisis,
Yeah.
the ones presiding over this pay-to-play model, they are now stepping up to the microphone.
Yep.
And they are announcing massive systemic solutions. So the core question for you to consider as we walk through all this evidence is pretty simple. Do you believe them?
Today we find out. Because what we are looking at is an announcement of 5 simultaneous changes. I mean, this is an unprecedented wave of reform in American youth soccer.
It really is. But before we examine those 5 changes, we need to ensure we understand the architecture of the system we are actually trying to fix. Because if you only watch the sport every 4 years, the American youth sports pyramid can be incredibly confusing.
It is entirely backward from the rest of the world. Let's break that down for you. If you look at the global standard, the European model, professional clubs over there fund their own youth academies. They scout talent, they bring kids in, and the club absorbs the financial risk. Because, well, developing a top-tier player yields a massive return on investment for them. The money basically flows from the top down to support the youth.
Yeah, but the American model functions in the exact opposite direction. The financial burden here, it rests almost entirely on the parents.
Entirely.
Families pay to local clubs. Then those clubs use that money to pay coaches, rent municipal fields, and cover all the administrative overhead. So the money flows from the bottom up. And that structure, it inherently turns the sport into an exclusionary product rather than an accessible community asset.
Which brings us to the baseline reality of this deep dive. We absolutely cannot evaluate these 5 new institutional promises without measuring them against the current data. We have 2 numbers here from the Sports and Fitness Industry Association and the Project Play 2025 report. And these 2 numbers form the unmoving spine of today's analysis.
Right, so the first number is negative 5.5%. That is the decline in youth soccer participation for kids ages 6 to 12 from 2013 to 2023. We are talking about a full decade of continuous decline.
A structural leak in the pipeline.
A massive leak.
Yeah.
And it is occurring precisely during the era of peak visibility for the sport.
Right.
You have the MLS expanding rapidly into new cities, right? They are building these massive stadiums.
Right.
You have the U.S. women's national team winning consecutive World Cups and driving massive cultural engagement. So the top of the pyramid has literally never been more visible. Yet the base of the pyramid has been steadily eroding for 10 years.
And the second number completely explains the first, $1,188. That is the average annual cost for a child to play soccer in the United States today. That makes it the most expensive major youth sport in the country.
By far.
So let's look at the mechanics of that number. Where does that money actually go?
Well, it evaporates incredibly quickly. You have club registration fees, and those cover league insurance and field permits. Then you have mandatory uniform kits that they often rotate designs every 2 years, forcing parents to buy all new gear.
Oh, the uniform racket is real.
Yeah. And then you have referee fees, coaching salaries, and the immense hidden cost of travel. The gas, the tolls, mandatory hotel stays for regional showcase tournaments. It adds up so fast.
And $1,188 is just the average. For every family paying $400, there's a family paying $2,000. The average masks the extremes. The extremes are who we've been talking about for 3 episodes. Ceiling versus floor, raise the ceiling without fixing the floor, the whole house collapses.
Right. So we have to test these upcoming reforms against that floor. Are these institutions actually pouring concrete at the bottom, or are they just hanging a new chandelier from the ceiling?
Exactly. So let's examine the first of the 5 major changes. Change number 1 addresses the calendar. For the 2026-27 season, there is a massive structural shift taking place. U.S. Youth Soccer, U.S. Club Soccer, AYSO, and MLS NXT have all agreed to switch from birth year cutoffs to school year cutoffs, moving the line to August 1st.
And the mechanics of this are so crucial to understand. Under the old system, a team was grouped by the year the children were born, January 1st through December 34. But, as we all know, schools group children from August through July.
Meaning you could be a high school sophomore, but because your birthday's in November, the youth soccer system groups you with high school juniors.
Exactly. We call these trapped players, and the data provided by Mike Koo-e-na maps this out perfectly. Under the birth year system, you routinely saw 2 to 5 trapped players per team, left completely stranded during their 8th grade and senior years.
Which is devastating. I mean, put yourself in the shoes of a 17-year-old high school senior. Your youth club team has moved on. Your club teammates are out getting scouted by college recruiters at these spring showcase tournaments. But because of an arbitrary calendar line, you are trapped out of your club age group while still trying to finish high school.
It is. And hundreds of thousands of players have been affected by this misalignment. So reverting to the August 1 cutoff, it keeps players aligned with their academic peers, it stabilizes their social environment, and crucially, streamlines the college recruitment process. Organizations like New England Surf are already proactively hosting identification sessions based on the school year to smooth this whole transition out.
Right.
But, and this is important, this reform doesn't reach backward. The kids who aged out 2017-2026 are already gone. For the senior, this is a scholarship that never materialized.
That's one reform.
It's not just one reform. It's 5 simultaneously. That has never happened before.
Right, so aligning the school calendar theoretically stops the bleeding of talent at the high school level, but fixing the calendar does absolutely nothing if you cannot afford the entry fee in the first place. Which brings us to change number 2. Moving from administrative reform to a direct attack on the financial barrier.
Yeah, and for this, we are looking at Southern California. San Diego FC, which is an expansion club, is launching the Right to Dream Academy on Sinquan tribal land in El Cajon. And this represents the first fully funded, tuition-free residential academy in the MLS NXT system.
Let's pull the lens down to the human level here. Imagine a talented kid from Chula Vista, a kid who spends hours with a ball at their feet, who possesses world-class vision on the pitch, but whose family simply cannot afford the $4,000 elite club fee.
Yeah.
Historically, that talent hits a concrete wall, but this academy requires zero cost. Admission is based purely on talent. If selected, the player receives a 5-year scholarship covering housing, elite training, and private education.
It is essentially the European model finally being applied in a hyper-localized American setting. And the Right to Dream organization, they have a proven track record of doing this in Ghana, Denmark, and Egypt. The investment in character development and holistic education is phenomenal for the individuals who actually gain entry.
It really is life-changing for them.
But tuition-free matters. But a tuition-free school nobody in the target community knows about is still an exclusive school. Expected to follow is not has followed.
Exactly. The mechanism of scouting is the bottleneck there. If a kid isn't already playing in a sanctioned, visible tournament, if they are just playing in an unsanctioned Sunday league because it's affordable, how does a multi-million-dollar residential academy even know they exist?
That is the fundamental limitation of the academy model. It is an incredibly deep investment, but it is incredibly narrow. It requires the talent to somehow find its way into the institution's line of sight.
Which is why we need to look at a completely different philosophical approach to the problem. So change number 3 takes us slightly north to Los Angeles, the Angel City FC Impact Fund.
All right. Angel City is an organization operating in the National Women's Soccer League, and their approach contrasts sharply with that centralized academy model we just talked about. They have pledged to reach 14,000 kids across more than 100 Los Angeles Department of Recreation and Parks sites with free programming. And they are specifically targeting girls and gender-expansive youth.
The park is the field. They aren't asking the community to travel to some multi-million-dollar suburban complex. They are utilizing the existing municipal infrastructure. They are funding coaches, bringing the equipment, and staging the sport in the neighborhoods where the kids already live.
And to understand why this strategy is so vital, we have to look at the psychological data surrounding sports access. The McKinsey Institute for Economic Mobility has extensively studied the concept of belonging in youth sports.
Yeah, we tend to think of access purely in terms of dollars and cents. Like, if we just waive the registration fee, the problem is solved.
But the McKinsey data prove that is fundamentally untrue. Belonging is a much deeper systemic barrier. It is the actual psychological friction a child experiences when they step onto a field.
Right.
Do the coaches look like them? Do the other players speak their language? Are they wearing the right brand of expensive cleats? Or do they feel like an imposter the absolute moment they walk through the gate? This is the first initiative that directly targets the belonging barrier, not the cost. The belonging.
It is such a crucial distinction. San Diego's Academy is like handing out a rare first edition masterpiece to a select few kids. It is life-changing for the ones who receive it, but it remains a singular artifact. Angel City is not handing out rare books. They are trying to build an entire public library system across Los Angeles where every kid feels entitled to a library card. Library versus book. A book is a one-off. A library is an ecosystem.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
But building a library system in one city is a monumental task. Trying to build an ecosystem across an entire continent is something else entirely. Let's look at the attempt to scale this up. Change number 4. Bank of America and the U.S. Soccer Federation.
This is a massive infrastructure play. They are currently constructing the $200 million Arthur M. Blank National Training Center in Atlanta, which is set to open in 2026.
$200 million buys a lot of infrastructure. We are talking about state-of-the-art turf, sports science labs, recovery centers, and centralized coaching education hubs. And crucially, it is accessible by MARTA, Atlanta's public transit system, meaning it isn't completely isolated in the inaccessible suburbs.
True. But the physical building is really only half the strategy. Running parallel to this construction is an initiative called Soccer at Schools, spearheaded by Lexia LAS. And the stated operational goal of this program is to reach every single school in the United States by 2030.
Let's examine the mechanics of how Lexia LD's program intends to achieve that, because they are distributing starter kits, equipment, curriculum, physical education activities, directly to teachers. They are trying to bypass the club system entirely and inject the sport back into the daily academic routine.
Because they are responding to a very bleak reality on the ground. According to their internal data, 67% of parks and recreation departments nationwide report a severe lack of facility space. Furthermore, 82% of community sports agencies report a critical shortage of volunteer coaches.
You cannot build a developmental pipeline without a centralized hub to train the coaches who will then go out into those communities. You have to train the trainers.
Right, but is this a monument to elite development or a pipeline for every zip code? This question has no answer yet. When MLS expanded, did grassroots funding follow? The pattern in American sports infrastructure is consistent. These kids are 12 today, they'll be 18 in 2030.
Yeah, you are looking at a chronological gap. Even if Lexshare LT's starter kits reach a rural middle school in 2029, a child who is facing that $1,188 barrier right now doesn't have the luxury of waiting.
Exactly. Which brings us to the ultimate intersection of massive institutional promises and localized reality. Change number 5, the FIFA Kids on the Pitch program.
This is the visual centerpiece of the World Cup legacy. We all know the tradition. The cameras are rolling, the stadium is deafening, and the world's greatest players walk out of the tunnel holding the hands of young children. For the 2026 tournament, 1,400 children will participate in this ritual across 66 matches in 11 host cities, sponsored by Quaker Oats and Common Goal.
And, the tradition originated in 2002 as a partnership with UNICEF to promote global child welfare. As a television product, it is deeply emotional. It projects an image of unity and accessibility. But are these kids from elite academies or from Los Angeles Unified School District neighborhood programs? That question turns a symbol into a story.
Exactly. If the child holding the hand of the U.S. men's national team captain is a kid whose parents paid $5,000 for elite travel club access, the symbol is entirely hollow. If it is a kid who plays in an Angel City-funded park league, well, then the narrative actually connects to the floor.
Right. And we have spent a significant amount of time examining these 5 top-down institutional changes. The calendar alignments, the tuition-free academies, the park initiatives, the $200 million facilities, and the global broadcast symbols.
But you cannot measure the effectiveness of a top-down policy without examining the reality from the bottom up. We need to leave the institutional blueprints and travel to a place where the sport is actually lived day to day. So we are going to deeply explore the State of Play Camden report, authored by Tom Ferry and the Aspen Institute.
And this report is a crucial diagnostic tool. It provides a granular, unvarnished look at a municipal sports ecosystem fighting against massive structural headwinds. Camden, New Jersey, serves as the ultimate reality check for every single promise being made ahead of the 2026 World Cup.
The first thing Tom Ferry's research exposes is a phenomenon known as the middle school drop-off. The numbers here are alarming. In Camden, youth participation in team sports sits at 71% during elementary school.
Which is a relatively healthy number.
It is. But by the time those same children reach middle school, participation drops to 65%, and by high school, it plummets to 59%. The kids are bleeding out of the system before they are even old enough to drive.
We really have to unpack the mechanism of that drop-off. It is not a sudden collective loss of interest in athletics. The report details a systemic failure of infrastructure. Middle schools in Camden simply lack the coordinated, centralized scheduling required to maintain sports programs.
They lack fields, they lack trained coaches.
Yeah. So the quality of a child's athletic development is entirely dependent on a geographic lottery. If a child does not receive fundamental skill development during those critical middle school years, they arrive at high school completely unprepared to compete. And faced with the pressure of academics and the realization that they lack the baseline skills to make the team, the path of least resistance is to just walk away.
And when you analyze who is walking away, the data reveals a staggering gender disparity. Let's look specifically at Woodrow Wilson High School in Camden. According to the Aspen Institute, females constituted 42% of the overall student body. Yet they made up only 23% of the athletes.
And the broader survey data compounds this. 72% of boys in the community regularly play sports, compared to only 59% of girls. The disparity in opportunity is massive. Boys are 3.5 times more likely to participate on a travel team and twice as likely to play on a municipal recreation team.
The report gives a voice to the kids behind these statistics. There's Destiny Hauser. She is a 13-year-old student who runs track and plays basketball. She attended a presentation about lacrosse and recognized she possessed the speed and agility for the sport. She really wanted to play.
But she had already internalized the economic boundaries of her environment.
Exactly. She told the researchers, I'm not going to make my football team or basketball team if we have to pay $100 a month, because at the end of the day, parents still need to buy food, clothes, shoes, electric, a roof. She is 13 years old, and she is already calculating the household utility bills against her desire to pick up a lacrosse stick. The cost barrier stopped her before she even stepped onto a field.
It is heartbreaking. And then you look at Ethan Brown, a 9-year-old with a deep passion for soccer. He understands the mechanics of the game, the passing lanes, the strategy. But his local organization, the Camden Youth Soccer Club, faces such severe deficits in field space, trained volunteers, and funding that they are forced to only hold practice sessions.
They don't play games.
No games. Ethan's only exposure to an actual competitive soccer match occurs during unstructured school recess. You cannot cultivate a competitive developmental pipeline when the infrastructure does not allow the kids to actually compete.
But the report also highlights what happens when the infrastructure actually functions. Take Jessica Rodriguez. She is an 18-year-old whose trajectory demonstrates the profound impact of access. She navigated the system, eventually transitioning from baseball to basketball. She became the first female player at her charter high school to score over 1,000 career points, ultimately securing a 4-year academic scholarship to Rowan University.
And her outcome is the absolute blueprint of what youth sports are supposed to achieve.
It really is. She explicitly credits her athletic environment for her success, noting that the confidence she built on the court directly translated to her academic and personal life. As a gay youth, she emphasized how critical that supportive framework was to her development. But her success story also highlights how easily talent can slip through the cracks without immense personal resilience and, frankly, luck.
Yeah, because the physical environment in Camden actively works against that success. The city dedicates only 8% of its total land to parks and recreation. And to put that into perspective for you, the national average is 15%. Across the river in Philadelphia, it is 13%. In New York City, it is 21%.
And even when world-class infrastructure exists within the city limits, it is often isolated by invisible barriers. The Creas Center in Camden is a prime example of this. It is a $90 million state-of-the-art Salvation Army facility. It boasts an NCAA regulation gymnasium, an indoor turf field, a competition pool. From the outside, it looks like the ultimate solution to the infrastructure deficit.
It does. But Tom Ferry's report uncovers a profound disconnect between the facility and the surrounding community. Local residents perceive the Kroc Center as totally inaccessible.
Why? Because a single-day pass costs $10. If a local school wants to rent the gymnasium for a game, the rate is $160 an hour.
And then add to that the logistical nightmare of transportation. In a community with low vehicle ownership rates, where parents are navigating multiple jobs and unpredictable shift work, simply driving a child to a facility is a monumental hurdle. Parents explicitly told the Aston researchers that they do not register their children for leagues because they lack reliable transit to get them to practice.
You have a $90 million ceiling built right in the middle of the city, but the kids cannot get off the floor to reach it. Now, it is important to note that the new leadership at the Cray Crack Center recognizes this. They are actively canvassing the neighborhoods, restructuring their rental models, and seeking local partnerships to provide volunteer coaches in an effort to eliminate the overhead costs.
Right. But that pivot illustrates the central thesis of our entire analysis today. You can construct a $90 million facility in Camden or a $200 million national training center in Atlanta. But if you fail to simultaneously engineer the community trust, the subsidized access, and the transportation networks, well, those facilities remain exclusive islands.
This is exactly why we must continuously connect Camden back to the 2026 World Cup announcements. When a press release states that 1,400 children will walk onto the pitch, does that alter the daily reality of Rashawn Hornsby? He is a volunteer coach with the Centerville Simbas Youth Football Club in Camden. Before he can run a practice, he has to arrive early to manually sweep broken glass and discarded needles off the municipal fields.
The announcements occur in corporate boardrooms. The reality of American youth sports occurs on fields covered in glass.
We have evaluated the evidence. We have traversed from the executive suites of the U.S. Soccer Federation down to the middle school fields of Camden, New Jersey. We have documented 5 massive, unprecedented institutional shifts. A total restructuring of the youth calendar, the introduction of a tuition-free MLS and NXT Academy, a citywide impact fund targeting the psychology of belonging, a $200 million national facility promising to reach every school, and a global corporate initiative placing kids on the World Cup pitch.
5 changes, one number that doesn't move yet.
Direction, right. Velocity uncertain.
The kids who aged out already gone.
It's not against reform. Argument for urgency.
The question we haven't asked, who's still missing from every single one of these announcements? That's episode 4.